My biggest priority is to make sure that we get the information out there so that people go to jail. And if the DOJ isn't going to do their job, then I will do their job for them. And if it means we shame these people out of civil society and out of existence, then that's what we're going to do. When she was asked a tough question, she discussed the Dow and how high the stock market was doing. It's shameful. Why is the DOJ, why is the Attorney General carrying around a folder of the search histories of members of Congress who only simply want the truth? She should answer for that. Okay, we're doing Epstein files. So this week, the DOJ allowed members of Congress to access the Epstein files that were unredacted. My primary focus going in the first day, which was on Tuesday, was on co-conspirators within the files. Interestingly enough, and I posted this online, the picture of the document, I believe, the number one document that was most important to me came from the Southern District of New York about co-conspirators that were investigated. And wouldn't you know, I found the document within the database. However, all the information was redacted. Every single name of a co-conspirator in that document from the Southern District of New York was redacted. So it didn't even matter that I was in the DOJ or that I was on their computers and sifting through files. The one document, my numero uno, number one document that I wanted to review, I couldn't review because it was redacted. There were some documents that were, and this was one of the ones that was put on the DOJ website and then taken down. There were a number of documents that I could not find within the files at the Department of Justice. And if you could find a document, good luck, and you had to cross your fingers and pray that it was unredacted to get any sort of information. I went there 2 days in a row. Went there Tuesday and Wednesday. You were only allotted 2 hours per time slot at the Department of Justice. Essentially, the room that you walk into is the size of a closet, about the size of that bathroom right there. And there were 4 desks in there, each with a computer. And then you had usually 1 to 2 monitors. You had monitors, people at the DOJ that were monitoring you, would answer your questions if you had some. There's also a tech person who would log you into the computer. They log you into the computer because every member of Congress was given a unique ID so that the DOJ could track you. And the DOJ could track the documents that you searched for, the documents that you opened, and the documents that you reviewed. I'm probably the last person, because I used to be a computer programmer, that you'd want in your software. And yesterday I was tinkering around, I was inside it, looking at some of the information included in the software, and was able to verify that the DOJ is, in fact, I would call it, quote, tagging members of Congress and the documents that they are searching and then opening and then reviewing. The minute that you touched a document, the DOJ software tagged your name in it. And if you didn't know where to look, you wouldn't know where to find it, but I did. And I wanted to verify that's what they were doing, and they were. And then all that information is timestamped. And I wonder what they're looking for, why they're monitoring us, and why, they're spying essentially on members of Congress. And you have to ask yourself, does this cross the line in terms of, branches of government, and what our role is there with oversight of that investigation or lack thereof, and then the DOJ. So that was a thing. These documents that I brought with me today are related to things in South Carolina, certain names. This is the pageant. I know that there were some emails regarding a former pageant queen that I read online between Epstein and her. So I have all those emails printed off here that I've been going through. There are some businesses in the state of South Carolina and individuals from here that may have been involved in business dealings with Jeffrey Epstein. So we're doing a bit of that research right now to see. I did read the documents related to the victim out of Hilton Head Island. Obviously, I'm not going to disclose any of her information about her, but deeply painful to read her testimony and what happened to her at the very young age of 13. And what I realized in reviewing these documents is that this touched thousands of lives. And it wasn't just in Palm Beach or in New York or on Little St. James. I mean, I saw evidence, and this is giving me chills right now and goosebumps, of people all around the world trying to sell Jeffrey Epstein women. And I saw a series, and so there shouldn't be a surprise, I suppose. We're talking about a billionaire with a lot of billionaire friends. So we shouldn't be surprised that it reached into South Carolina. It probably reached into every state in the United States, whether it was business or fraud or sex trafficking, prostitution, you name it. This had to touch people in every state in the country. In several countries around the world, we're talking about a global sex trafficking ring. And there was an email that I know a lot of people posted online where it was referencing a 9-year-old. That particular email where it says new Brazilian came in and it was referencing a 9-year-old. Well, that was a typo. I don't know how you get a typo in some of these documents. It was actually, I believe, a 19-year-old. And that email came from a woman in Paris at a modeling agency. And that woman will be listed on a list of names that I will be providing to the oversight committee of people that I want to have interviewed, deposed, and to testify before Congress about what was actually going on. And there were a lot of women that were trying to recruit women or, send pictures. This was a modeling agency agent out of Paris that was sending Jeffrey Epstein a photo of an undressed 19-year-old model, new model from Brazil. And and so time and time again, you would see evidence of women recruiting other women, women trying to recruit underage girls, et cetera, that kind of thing. That was one of the reasons why I just realized, wow, number one, it's so widespread. This is worldwide. Two, it wasn't just men who were predators. There were women who were predators too. Some of the other documents that I uncovered and read through were really the harrowing details of 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds that were recruited by Epstein, that were groomed by Epstein. And not only were they raped and sexually assaulted, they were then paid to recruit other girls to come into the trafficking ring. And we're talking a 14-year-old child. There were parents that allegedly would travel with their underage daughter to places like New York, to places like Palm Beach, to lend out their teenage daughter to Jeffrey Epstein and his business partners. So when you read that, it's really, it's shocking. I read this morning in some of these files that were printed off. I have a huge stack of files. I couldn't even bring all of them with me to South Carolina today because there was too many that I had printed off that I want to research. And then I'm going back to the DOJ to spend more time there. I'm probably the last person that should have been given access to the Epstein files, because if there's one person who can get to the bottom of this, it will be me. If I spend the next 10 months doing this, that's what I'm going to do. But there was an event with several Hollywood celebrities that the Epstein group was trying to rent out a venue to do a movie showing with these Hollywood celebrities long after he was convicted and served time in prison for being a pedophile. And so when I would see this, these are names everybody knows. These are movie stars. These are media pundits. These are billionaires. It's really unbelievable, and it's shocking what has gone on here. The other thing that's shocking is that the DOJ hasn't made a single arrest of anybody else except for, save for, one accomplice. And we all know that is not humanly possible. You can't have thousands of victims and only one accomplice. Somebody drove the car, flew the planes, somebody opened the doors, someone was the housekeeper. All these properties, there were witnesses. And then there were the cases of some of these billionaires who are allegedly involved in the sex trafficking operation that were paying money in settlement agreements, in civil settlement agreements, monies to other countries. I read a document this morning with Leon Black's name in it, allegedly, that paid off women in settlements for allegedly being sexually assaulted. So I'm going to get to the bottom of this. Number one. Two, I'll be focusing on, what commonalities there were in South Carolina, because I've heard there may be other victims that are here as well. But my most and my greatest concern is that nothing's going to happen after this. And my biggest priority is to make sure that we get the information out there so that people go to jail. And if the DOJ isn't going to do their job, then I will do their job for them. And if it means we shame these people out of civil society and out of existence, then that's what we're going to do. If they're not going to go to jail, then that's what we're going to do. The other thing that I realized this week is that this goes back decades. This isn't just the current administration. This isn't just the Biden administration. This isn't just Obama. This goes back to George Bush's administration, to his DOJ, to his FBI, to prosecutors in Florida. I want to bring in Acosta. I want to know why this deal was done. The victims weren't asked about settling it out with Epstein and why that happened. I want to know why these predators were protected and the victims exposed. And as we all know this week, there were victims' names and contact information that were made public. And yet you've redacted the names of potential predators, but you reveal the names of potential victims. Some of these women have never come forward publicly and have always been Jane Doe. And then at the same time, you understand a little bit better why none of these kinds of cases ever get prosecuted anywhere. I mean, when was the last time a rapist really went to jail and served big prison time for doing something like this in the state of South Carolina? I came forward over 2 years ago with video and photographic evidence of women being abused and not a single arrest over 2 years later. And leadership in this country starts at the top. This is a cultural issue where women are treated like second-class citizens. It's been going on for thousands of years. And I want to thank the Epstein victims for their bravery, for their courage, for coming forward and being vulnerable and telling the truth, regardless of the attacks. And now they're being blamed, now they're being attacked, just like most women are who come forward. I've been attacked too. But people have to go to jail. And if we can make this happen with the Epstein and the Epstein cases, then it can happen everywhere in the country for every young woman who's been abused. The letter I put out today to the DOJ, and I have 4 letters right now that you're going to be seeing in my office disseminate over the next couple of days based on my last 2 days at the Department of Justice. This one today was to Attorney General Pam Bondi. We have this law signed into place, the Epstein Files Transparency Act that was signed into law that requires the Department of Justice to release all unclassified records. Now the DOJ has put records up and then taken them down. And I want a list of all the records, the file names, and a quick summary of what that document is, why it was removed from the DOJ website, and what was the reason, and when it's going to be placed back up on the DOJ website. And then I'm going to want to see a copy of all those documents unredacted. Next, I have a letter going out to the Southern District of New York any day now. One of the excuses of the DOJ, and this can't possibly be true, no one in their right mind believes this, but one of the excuses that we were given on the reason why some of these documents were redacted in the DOJ's system is because they say that's the way the data came to the DOJ, that it came already redacted, protecting the names and identities of the predators. We all know this isn't true. Because if the names of the victims in those same documents weren't redacted when they came over, then you can't tell me that it's truthful that they were redacting the names of the predators when it came to the DOJ. I don't believe that. And so I am putting a letter together for the Southern District of New York to provide all of their documents unredacted to the DOJ. Like, I can't even in my right mind. We're literally the Department of Justice for the United States of America. And you can't even get unredacted documents related to this investigation and the grand jury in New York. Nobody believes that. And I've got another letter that'll be going out in a couple of days related and going to, to the CIA. So the CIA allegedly is in possession of certain documents related to Jeffrey Epstein. I want to see those documents and I want to see them unredacted. I want to see a copy of all of Jeffrey Epstein's passports, and under every single pseudonym he had those passports under as well. So you'll see that. The fourth one, I was doing this like stream of consciousness yesterday and this morning. Do you remember the fourth one?
No, I can get it.
We can follow up with you afterwards. It's been a long week. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a list of names. I'm sorry. The fourth document is a list of names to the Oversight Committee. There are more names than I imagined that would be on that list, and they're not all criminals. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that everyone committed a crime on the list I'm going to provide to the Oversight Committee, but I will be including who I believe to be witnesses, who I believe to be potential predators, and people who have information that will be of value to the committee in investigating the Epstein files. I am taking great care, because there are names of women on my list, to ensure that the women I will be listing are not victims of Jeffrey Epstein. So that's my number one priority, is to make sure that I'm not exposing any victim unnecessarily. I will not make the mistake of the DOJ. All right. And the list is actually, it's very long, and it's in my it's in my notes here. I've got my notes from the DOJ, and I've got a list of names of people within this that I want to that will be on that list to the oversight committee. I've warned the chairman that that list is coming, and I want those people to be invited to testify or be interviewed or deposed by the oversight committee. And if they won't come to the oversight committee, they need to be subpoenaed. And I do believe there needs to be a special task force. If the DOJ won't do it, then the House Oversight Committee or some variation thereof, either a subcommittee on the House Oversight Committee, or a separate special task force. And I will be requesting this to the Speaker of the House and to the Chairman of the Oversight Committee. There needs to be a special task force that is strictly looking at these files, what happened, when it happened, and who covered it up. Because at the end of the day, none of this matters if nobody goes to jail and if none of these predators are shamed out of existence. So with that, I will take some questions.
Yeah, question for you. We've seen across the globe other leaders step down because of their ties to Epstein. Why do you think that has yet to happen here in the States?
That's a great question. We've seen more punishment of some of these potential predators in other countries than our own. You saw Prince Andrew and his title taken away. You're seeing diplomats stripped of their titles and their diplomacy in other countries. Even now, from what I've read in media reports in the UK, King Charles is embarrassed by my comments, by other comments about Prince Andrew. But we've seen other countries do more to punish these individuals than we have. And it goes back to, I think, the culture that we have here. Women who come forward are shamed. They're called liars, no matter the evidence that they bring forward. I'm a witness to that. I've seen that. And it's shameful. It's disappointing. But the only way we change the culture of society is just by pushing harder, pushing for the truth, and pushing for accountability, and pushing for responsibility. And I want all those who covered this up to go to jail, along with those who committed the crimes.
What's your reaction to how Attorney General Bondi, I guess, performed in front of that hearing the other day?
When she was asked a tough question, she discussed the Dow and how high the stock market was doing. It's shameful. And the other thing I saw in photos, I'm not on judiciary, so I wasn't in the hearing, but in the Judiciary Committee, she had her folder open, and you saw an image of a search history of a member of Congress in the software, in the database. Why is the DOJ, why is the Attorney General carrying around a folder of the search histories of members of Congress who only simply want the truth? And she should answer for that. And I think she should come before the Oversight Committee, because I have a lot of tough questions for her.
Are there any names on the list that you can reveal?
Well, Bill Gates is going to be on there. I've talked about him. Leon Black is another one who's been mentioned in the press. Again, when it comes to some of the female individuals, I want to make sure that I'm not revealing the names. We have vetted the list of females one time. I found more names yesterday, so we're going to do a second vetting of those names. The magician, whom everybody knows, is going to be on the list. Jess Staley is another one who's going to be on the list. So some of these names you're going to recognize, but then there are others who worked in the houses, who clearly witnessed things, that I'm going to ask to come forward and answer questions.
And have you seen anybody in the, I guess what I'm getting at here with your list, are any of them, Republican allies of the president, or are they all
There'll be a mix of
not
Republicans and
allies?
Democrats.
But
I'm going to be equal opportunity about the names. I'm not going to be.
Sure.
I'm not going to be filtering it for political affiliation.
Okay.
You noted in the, holding up some of these files that you've brought with you today that you have seen South Carolina connections.
Mhm.
Based on the materials that you've reviewed, do you see any potential South Carolina co-conspirators?
I don't. Not in the co-conspirator side. Now, I haven't read all of the pageant emails to know if that individual was involved in any of that, but I have not. What I have seen is, I think, some records related to a Ponzi scheme, some records related to individuals that worked on, he has a yacht club sort of thing and some of the construction down there, but I haven't seen anything regarding any co-conspirators.
Some of the victims in the room with Pam Bondi said that they were feeling dehumanized by their treatment there. I want to get your thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, they've gone to the FBI, they've gone to the DOJ, and it fell on deaf ears. So to say to them, you can come and talk to us anytime when they've been denied that up until this point, it's, and they've been not denied it, it's not just Pam Bondi. I mean, this is Merrick Garland. This is Joe Biden. This is Barack Obama. This is George Bush. This is everyone under their leadership as well that turned a blind eye to all of this. This is Alex Acosta in Florida. What was going on in Florida? Why weren't the co-conspirators charged in Florida at the very least? If you can't get it federally, then what can we do at the state level, right? And that didn't happen in New York, didn't happen in Florida, or in the BVIs either. So there are a lot of people that have to answer for this. This has been going on for 20 plus years.
Have any potential Epstein victims reached out to you, particularly any with South Carolina ties?
Not anyone in South Carolina, but I met with victims this week. The family of Virginia Guffrey Roberts was in my office a few days ago. I have met with victims a couple times, both in person and virtually over Zoom. And they've listened to their stories, and it's sad.
President Trump's name does come up quite a bit in these documents. There are also other names that have come up. Based on Attorney General Pam Bondi's responses yesterday when she was questioned by your fellow House members and this volume of names, are you satisfied that victims will be brought to justice? And do you have any concerns about this DOJ shielding powerful men even up to the White House?
Well, Donald Trump, number one, is exonerated in the files. Number two, these women will never get justice. Like so many women around the country who come forward, they will never get justice. I have lost all faith personally in the justice system. So the best thing we can do is expose what happened, expose who did it, and hope that they get shamed out of civil society, that they lose board seats, that they lose business, that they lose some of the successes that they have had, and are so embarrassed they just walk away. That's the best thing. Now, if someone goes to jail, I would be shocked. But again, like I look at all these cases, and again, I think that, I had someone talk to me on the way over here about a murder case in Berkeley County. Young guy who was in a wheelchair and was murdered, stabbed 14 times in the back in a wheelchair in 2017. And the state paraded that his murderer was going to be prosecuted. It's 2025. And the murderer is walking free, is not in jail, is not in a mental health hospital. And there was never a trial, no prosecution, nothing in going on almost 10 years, talking 9 years, right? So I have learned a lot through the process of working with the Epstein victims. And then now I'm dealing with cases all across the state of South Carolina. Scott Spivey's case, there's a hearing coming up about that, shot in the back, chased 9 miles down the road aggressively and killed, and there's no murder investigation and no trial. Are you kidding me? We had a case of Skip Hoagland down in Beaufort County who was thrown in jail for showing up at an event, exercising his First Amendment right. He was going to be thrown in jail for 15 days. I tweeted about it, and I let him out within 2 hours. We've got murder victims. Logan Federico's father has been here, and I've met with him. Murder victims, families of murder victims, sexual assault victims, parents. The family court system in South Carolina is so screwed up. Moms and dads not getting a fair shake. And so I have just learned to live vicariously with all this trauma of all these families who are just begging for a fair trial, just begging to get justice. And I want to be able to give these people hope. And so if we can't get justice in the court system, then we get it in the public domain. And that's what we're going to do with the Epstein files.
You've expressed a lot of frustration with the DOJ today.
Mm-hmm.
At what point do you think Pam Bondi should be reconsidered or maybe consider stepping down? Would you ever push for her to not? Are you suggesting that she's unfit to hold the job right now? I'm not
suggesting she's unfit. I'm suggesting we need to put people in jail. And it's not just the Epstein files. I mean, again, this has been going on for over 20 years, so it is not solely her fault or fall on her shoulders. There's a lot of media attention on it right now, and I do feel for her in that regard. But at the same time, now we have all this information. Now it's just time to act. We need to act. But people have to go to jail for committing crimes. And if they walk free, then again, it just trickles on down. Then, you never ask someone to do something you yourself would never be able to do. And if people aren't going to jail for being a pedophile, then gosh, well, that if they got away with it, then we don't have to prosecute it either. It just makes life easier. And for example, in the state of South Carolina, there's a bill that just passed in the state house that would increase the mandatory minimums for child pornography and child pedophilia and sexual exploitation of a minor, et cetera. But none of that matters. That might make you feel good, but it doesn't matter if you're not prosecuting these people. And in the state of South Carolina, they do like a lot of places do, where they just plead everything down to one charge and then hope nobody looks. They may or may not go on the sex offender registry. If they plead to simple assault rather than a child sexual exploitation of a minor, they never see the sexual offender registry, but it's pled down and then nobody goes to jail. Donald Gresh facing 60 years, spent 1 day in jail. Travis Reed Gay was facing 70 years, spent a couple hours in jail. I mean, that's just, again, the feds need to do it and set the example and set the tone for the rest of the country. And that's what I want to see happen, because I want people who are bad and break the law to go to jail.
What are your thoughts on elected officials, public elected officials, who have yet to acknowledge anything about these files?
Well, it's sad, but it's not surprising. People don't want to stick their neck out for victims, and that is tried and true. Most of the time, that's just how it is. And one of my biggest frustrations right now is politicizing the Epstein files. Trump didn't do anything wrong. He was exonerated by victims and exonerated in the files. But, the left wants to just say his name and say Epstein, and my gosh, they can raise a bunch of money. But our focus needs to be on the victims, and the focus needs to be on getting the victims justice. Because if they can get just a little bit of justice in this, then that gives hope for every other woman who needs to come forward and tell her story to get justice of her own. And that's why, this is so important to me personally.
Is there any legislation that you would like to put forward? I know you have a portfolio.
I have
You don't have to. You don't have to run through that, but are
Yeah.
you planning to push something forward that's new, that really has some teeth to
I'll
it?
support Virginia's law that was revealed this week that takes away the expiration time or statute of limitations on trafficking victims. I have already put forth bills that would put a criminal right of action under Title 18 for voyeurism and other things. I have worked on civil torts within the federal jurisdiction that I have. We have the Tighten Violence Against Women Act. I found out through my experiences and the experience of the Epstein victims that it really is really not a lot of teeth behind it. Victims are supposed to be treated with respect and dignity and anonymity. In my case, the judge in my case didn't allow the rape victims to move forward as Jane Doe. These are not public figures. These are women who are victimized, assaulted, brutalized, and now get harassed in the press because they came forward. And you're supposed to be allowed to move forward as a Jane Doe in the state of South Carolina and as federally. And the victims in the Epstein files are supposed to be protected, and they weren't. So, there's just so much interconnectivity that this is a disease that is infecting the nation. And we have to have strong leaders who are willing to put their neck out, put their name on the line, and fix it. And I don't do this with any animosity. I don't do this with any calculation. This is just moral clarity and the right thing to do.
One more question as it relates to yesterday's hearing.
Mm-hmm.
There was also another moment when a member of Congress asked Pam Bondi to apologize to the victims who were in the room. You yourself have spoken about your experiences as a victim.
Mm-hmm.
What did you make of her non-answer?
Was that the one where I wasn't in the hearing. Was that the one where she talked about the stock market, or was that a different one? What was her response?
I can't recall her exact response, as it was a rather long hearing, but the long story short is she did not apologize to these victims when she was given the opportunity to do so.
Well, Merrick Garland didn't either. No president has, no prosecutor has, no solicitor has. No one has apologized to these women. It's disgusting.